Welcome to Retro Quest, my retro video gaming podcast where I force my son to play old video games. I'm your host, D.
And I am Socko, your co-host.
And today we are talking about The Legend of Zelda 2.
Link's Awakening.
No, it's not Link's Awakening.
It's Adventure.
It's Link's Adventure. That's a future episode. Spoiler. So, first off, let's talk about what we've done the last couple weeks since our last podcast. What have you been up to, Socko?
Oh, well, just trying to get this game through, which is more of a task than I thought it was going to be at the end of the last episode.
For sure. You been playing anything else?
I recently got my PlayStation account back, so I've been playing a lot of online games.
Got your PlayStation account back. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I am indeed a gamer, as I said on the first episode. So I kind of talked like I was in a Call of Duty lobby for a little bit, and Sony doesn't like that too much.
So you talk like an angry 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And you're in fact an angry 15-year-old boy.
Well, I was 14 at the time.
Okay, well, all the racial epithets are not cool.
Nope, not anymore. Not that I'm 15. But
is that all you've been up to?
Yeah, just playing some online games, trying to get my friends on. But
what have you been playing online? GTA?
Yeah, mostly GTA. I was gonna start like a whole Twitch thing with GTA, but I never got to it. I don't know if I will, but.
So were you streaming this game?
Was I streaming this game? I streamed this game like at first when I was playing it, but then I got stuck and I could not. I just got so angry. The third time I streamed it on Twitch, the video never went up on my YouTube channel because the VOD was too short. So I was like, I'm just not gonna upload this.
You just gave up. Oh, you're like, I don't want the world to see my shame.
Yeah. So I was just like, you know what? Like I just like quit mid like. We were in the middle of, like, a cave or something. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not playing this game right now. Like, I'm done. I'm going to get back to this game another time, but I'm done streaming. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I just ended the stream.
All right. Fair enough. I mean, yes, I understand this. As for me, I've been playing, I've been working a whole lot last couple weeks, like a lot.
Yeah.
But in the free time I have had at work and whatnot, I've been playing Dredge. Have you ever heard of Dredge?
I've heard the name, but I've never played it.
It is a horror fishing game. I know that sounds like a weird mashup, but it's actually really addicting. Like I'm still playing it, you know, when I wasn't playing Zelda, and this week when I'm not playing next episode's game, I'll be playing Dredge, or maybe trying out some of that Starfield that I played like maybe an hour of so far.
Oh yeah, I heard that's a huge game.
Huge game.
Wish Bethesda still made games for Sony, because then I might be able to get that game. Well, I couldn't because I have a PS4, but.
Well, still, I don't know. I don't know if it's hooking me yet. It seems really boring. Everybody says it gets good after the 10-hour mark or so, and I feel like that's a lot of an investment.
That's a lot of game
before the game starts getting good. But you know,
like I mean, I know like there's like virtually almost like an infinite amount of content, but that doesn't like make a 10-hour mark to get like fun justifiable.
I don't know if there's an infinite amount of content because. I don't know, it seems very linear even though it's like a Bethesda game and
Really?
Yeah, I mean there's not really space travel, you fast travel from point to point.
Oh, that's
you kind of explore the world a little bit. I don't know. Like I said, I've only played an hour, maybe two of it. So I'm speaking off of just kind of what I heard.
Yeah.
But that's about that for me. So let's get into the game this week, buddy. So let's do a little bit of history of the game and then, you know, a synopsis of the story like I will like to do.
Yep.
So I'll start off with The Legend of Zelda 2. The Adventure of Link is the second main installment of the Legend of Zelda series and the direct sequel to The Legend of Zelda. It was originally released on the Famicom Disk System in Japan and eventually on the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America and Europe. While retaining many of the features of its predecessor, The Adventure of Link altered certain elements of gameplay, most notably affecting movement and combat. Traveling across a world map would lead to enemy encounters, which took place on a side-scrolling field of play rather than the top-down perspective for which the series became known. Famicom Disk System. That means
isn't that just the Japan Nintendo system?
Well, the Famicom is the Japan version of the Nintendo. stood for Family Computer, but the Famicom Disk System was actually an add-on to the Famicom, which read discs. Not like CDs, but disc, floppy disk type things. And that's when they had the save feature, because I believe back in the original Famicom, they didn't have no save feature at all. It was all the games on the Famicom, from what I remember hearing about, was passwords. Even like Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, you'd have these extensive passwords.
Yeah, that checks out, because that game that I was telling you about, Author's World, that one has passwords for like...
Well, there are some still Nintendo games that have passwords because, it costs a little money to put that extra little battery in the cartridge. The battery. But on the Famicom Disk System, you could save on it because it was like a floppy disk. Yeah. And also in Japan, they had like, from what I heard, little kiosks you could go, and you could like pay $5 and you take your rewritable disc in, and you could just download a new disc onto that disc and take it home and play it. So I mean, it was a cool thing.
That's kind of like a really like bad way of pirating a game almost.
Well, I mean, it wasn't pirating, but it was ahead of its time. It was like, okay, well, you got this disc, instead of buying a whole brand new cartridge, you could just rewrite the disc for $5.
Yeah. Like, the reason I say, because it's like...
I'm sure it led to mass pirating. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But like... Because they would... I don't know if you know what the NES chip is. It's a little... It's a little chip inside the NES cartridge that was against piracy, but using a disc system, I don't know what kind of right protection... Not right protection, but copyright protection they had.
It probably didn't have any. Or if like very weak.
But also I heard like the Famicom Disk System actually had, because of the storage capacity, had much better music on a lot of games. Like I've heard some games like Legend of Zelda, I think Metroid, I've heard differences. Like the differences of music between the NES and the Famicom Disk System version. Yeah. The music is way different. Not way different, but way better. It's like it's got more tracks. It's got better, whatever the musical equivalent of coolness is.
Yeah. But I feel like isn't it like it's a 4-track system with the NES, right?
I believe it's the 4-track system, because there are a lot of games where if they use a lot of sound effects and stuff, there's no music. Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I was thinking of one earlier where it's dead silent, except for like certain areas where they don't have the sound effect tracks running.
It doesn't ever get dead silent in the original Legend of Zelda, or not in even Zelda 2 that I noticed. But I did note it. Like, it really brought me like back to sitting on my floor in the living room with the SNES hooked up and loading up Mario, and like whenever I jumped, there would like something would just cut out of the background for like a split second. Yeah. It really brought me back. I was like,
I don't recall that in Mario, but that checks out. That sounds like something that makes sense. All right, so we talk about the story of The Legend of Zelda, because Legend of Zelda 2, because the story is weird. So from the wiki, I'm going to read the story, and then I'm going to read the story of what I remember. Yeah. So a few years after the defeat of Ganon, the rescue of Princess Zelda, Link, now at the age of 16. So I think this is 5 years later, so he was like 11.
Yeah,
that we determined.
We determined 10.
Okay, so he was about 11. At the age of 16, he is now the age of 16, and he's disturbed by the appearance of a mark on the back of his hand. Upon seeing this mark, Impa, the nurse of Princess Zelda, the lady that said, "Hey, look, this guy,
look like you
this 11-year-old boy who fought off some moblins, you're a swordsman now. Go save the world."
Yeah, here's the location of a sword. Go do this.
So Impa sees the mark and tells him the story of how ages ago the king of Hyrule had hidden the third part of the Triforce of Courage, in the great palace to safeguard from evil. Upon the death of the king, his son had searched for the missing Triforce, but its location had been imparted only to the king's daughter, Princess Zelda. Angered upon learning this, the prince tried to use the power of a magician it's always a magician in this game, to force the truth from his sister. After she refused, the wizard cast a spell upon her to put her into a deep sleep, which caused the wizard to die soon after. That is a shitty wizard. That's not even a powerful spell. A sleep spell? That's like a first level spell in Final Fantasy. And it killed the magician,
Jesus.
Anyway. Only the uniting of the Triforce of Courage with its counterparts would Link be able to awaken the sleeping Princess Zelda. Upon hearing this tale, Link receives from Impa the 6 crystals that serve as keys to open the seal on the Great Palace. As Link learns all this, the minions of Ganon begin to attack once again, believing that they could revive their master by pouring the blood of Link over his ashes. That is dark.
Jesus. This dude's just 17,
They
16.
They begin to spread across the land seeking Link. Eventually, Link is able to gain the Triforce of Courage, uniting the 3 Triforces, and Link returns to the Northern Palace and to awaken the slumbering Zelda. So first off, I want to talk about something that is implied but not directly spoken in the story synopsis here. So Link saves Zelda. Okay, he saves Zelda, gets the Triforce, whatever, and then a few years later, he gets the mark on the back of the hand, and it's told him about a Zelda that's been asleep for like a long time. So basically, in this game, there's 2 Zeldas.
Yeah, that's what I kind of, when you said that, was kind of what I heard. I was like, I thought maybe I was hearing it wrong. I was like, there's no way.
So the sleeping Zelda at the beginning of the game is a completely different Zelda than the Zelda you rescued in the first game, which begs the question, where the fuck is she at?
Yeah, and also, why are there 2 Zeldas?
Well, from what I know of the history of Hyrule Historia, is since the dawn of like the Kingdom of Hyrule, every king that has a daughter is supposed to name her Zelda.
Oh.
Like that's the tradition.
Okay.
Which is like, okay, it makes a little bit of sense, but also, that's just weird.
Yeah, I don't.
And also, where is the other Zelda?
Yeah, where did she go?
Like,
I thought, I completely thought it was the same one. Honestly, I was like,
I did as a kid too. I never heard this actually. I mean, I had the ability to in an instruction manual or whatever, but I never cared to because I was like, oh, another Zelda game. I'm saving Zelda, doing all this stuff. But it's weird. There's 2 Zeldas. It's like the Legend of Double Zelda. Or it's like the Legend of Zelda 2. The 2 stands for 2 Zeldas.
Oh yeah, that's probably why they named it that.
No, they named it because it's the second Zelda game.
I know.
You always do this, Socko.
You're always like this, Dad.
You're always like this.
I don't know what you're talking.
Gaslighting aside, so let's talk about the game. So the gameplay. Hated it. What did you hate about the gameplay?
Well, okay. So for some reason, something in my mind told me the gameplay was going to be different. But I thought it was going to be something smaller than it was.
Not a completely overhaul of the game.
Yeah. And I load into the game, and suddenly I'm looking at Link, who is tall all of a sudden.
Well, he's 16 now, bro. You're tall now too.
I did. But I'm not that much taller than I was when I was like 11.
Yeah,
I'm only like a foot taller.
A foot is a lot taller than and you're probably more than a foot taller. You're as tall as I am.
But like, it just because also I didn't read the story, and if I was gonna read the story, I wouldn't have read it before I started playing the game either. So to me, I thought this dude.
Maybe we should read. That's a big part of the Nintendo experience. Yeah. When you would get this game, even if you rented it or you bought it, the whole car ride home, you're reading that instruction manual. You're gonna know the story. I mean, I didn't, but normal people.
Same boat.
Normal people, you would read that instruction manual back and forth. I read the instruction manual, but not the story. Because I was like, oh, it's Zelda 2. Plus, I think the first time I ever played this game was at a time when I probably wouldn't have read it or hadn't cared about the instruction manual. Because I remember playing this game when I was very young. And it was, and still is. I'm not saying it's the best Zelda game, but it's my favorite Zelda game.
I could not see that.
I think it's a nostalgia thing. I think that's part of it. But also, it's just, I like the gameplay in this game better than the first Zelda game.
I don't.
This game is more focused on combat as opposed to puzzle solving.
Yeah, and I like the spells. Like I like the idea of the spells, but
I like the idea of the RPG elements. You got to remember, this is a very, very early NES game.
Well, yeah,
and they put RPG elements in an action adventure game.
But the thing also that kind of got me a little ticked off though with the RPG elements, you didn't have much of a choice with especially in the beginning when you leveled up, you didn't have much of a choice of what you like wanted to level up, because the amount of points you got was just enough to get one thing, and everything else was too high. Like, you didn't, and like...
Well, then you skip it and save up for the next level, the next thing you want to do.
Oh, I didn't know you could skip it.
Yeah, you can skip. If you don't want to level up your health, you can skip it and then keep building up your points and go to your magic or to your attack.
If I would have known that, then I would have definitely went with the magic build.
But a lot of what I like about it too is you can grind early on. In that first palace, by the time I leave the first palace, I usually have everything up to level 3 and my health up to level 4. And it's not hard to grind in that first palace.
Oh, no.
But so I was watching your VOD, the one where you figured out that if you leave the path, enemies would come out. But if they attacked you on the path, it was like nothing. You could just keep going.
Yeah.
It was like a blank thing. But if they attacked you outside the path, you'd have to fight. It was entertaining watching you figure that out, because you're like, how come they keep showing up every time I leave this path, but when I go to the path, they don't show up? That I like that element, because it's like, okay, you can stay on the path and not fight enemies, or you can go off the path and you're going to get attacked. That seems not realistic, but it makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
And then you have the slime monsters, which means you would fight weaker enemies, or the monster looking symbol, and then you would fight
like a bunch of
harder enemies.
Yeah.
And there's good secrets in here too. The gameplay elements, I like the combat in this. Like Zelda 1 combat is just you swing your sword. I mean, as much tactic as far as it goes as, oh, you might have to hit an enemy from the side, or you might have to hit an enemy with a certain weapon, or like what am I thinking of? That's not even really. You can hit someone with a boomerang, and I mean, you wouldn't know this because you never got the boomerang. But you could hit somebody with a boomerang, stun them, and then go in and just slash them. But there wasn't a whole lot of, combat as I like in this game. In this game, there's combat, and a lot of the combat moves in this game have been carried on to the more of the 3D Zelda games.
Yeah,
with
and
the
I'll
combat.
give the game. I'll definitely give the game that. The combat felt more like combat. Like I felt like I was actually playing a game that was built around combat, whereas Zelda 1, it just felt like it was kind of thrown in at the last minute.
Well, I mean, it wasn't thrown in. It was just like, it was basic. It was like swing your sword.
The basicness of it, especially because of how when I look at games now, how basic it was then, it just like feels like
it's not even that much more basic than a lot of top-down those kind of games are nowadays. I mean, you might have a parry and a heart attack.
Well, I don't play much like top-down games. There's a few, but not really. I don't really play those kinds of games. So, to me, it felt
okay. Well, the combat in the first Zelda game compared to this one, it's like non-existent compared to this one.
Yeah,
like, this one you can block, you can crouch. Enemies can block you. Did you get the other attacks that you can unlock, like the downward thrust and the upward thrust?
I got down thrust, but never got up thrust.
Oh, see, you got to get all the fighting abilities. There's a downward thrust, which is probably the most useful, because you can use that to get a lot of those, like the knights. You can down thrust on them to avoid their shields altogether. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I hated those guys.
The upward thrust helps out on a lot of the enemies too.
Like the eyeballs.
Like the fucking eyeballs.
Those ones. I hated those. When I got to the cemetery, finally, after the hour it took me to figure out how to get to the cemetery, and I got stuck with those eyeballs.
I remember the first day you played this game and you came out of your room exhausted and you said, "This game broke me." And god damn if I didn't feel that in my soul. Made me think of a kid and being like, what is this game so much like? We're gonna play Battle of Olympus too, and you're gonna same battle system, not the same game, but it goes a lot like this.
Yeah.
Another game I love, Battle for Olympus. But the gameplay, so basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna go through 6 palaces. You're gonna find a bunch of keys, and the difference in this game between the other games is the keys can only be used in that specific palace.
Yes.
And you're gonna unlock doors, which are weird looking doors that kind of get smaller. Like those gates, they look like gates more than doors.
They slowly close and just disappear.
Yeah. And then of course in each palace there is a special item you get.
Yep.
I don't think you get any extra hearts in palaces. There are some hidden hearts around the map. Did you get any of the hidden hearts?
I think I got one, and it was in that big maze thing.
Okay. Well, there's one on the first palace when you're in the desert. If you go straight south, you'll get to a little patch of woods, and there's a heart there. There's a heart. Where else is? There's other places I can't think on top of my head. Did you get that statue in the first little area?
I think
when
so.
you go through that cave, when you get the candle, and there's like a weird statue at the end of it.
I think so. Yeah.
I think you need that to progress at one point in the game or to get one of the abilities, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the experience point system because, like I said, you can grind.
Yeah.
And in that first palace, I usually grind it out. And you want to make sure you get that item out of the palace because once you beat the boss, the palace is a mountain. What do you think about that?
I kind of like that. That like, it was like attention to detail. Just like it's kind
of like you crumbled the palace.
Yeah, it fell within itself.
And it's almost like I beat that. And ain't no going back.
Like I did that. That was me. I figured that out. I killed that guy. His family is sad because of me.
Well, I guess that's sad. I mean, if he has a family, you killed a father.
But he also
brother.
was like trying to kill me though.
Yeah, well,
my family would have been sad.
Well,
I mean, you would.
I mean, let's not go that far. I would have felt a way about a thing.
You definitely would have.
But so you liked the gameplay? Did you like the battle mechanics of it all?
I liked it. I hated it at the same time, but I liked it.
Did you ever get good at it? We consider this the Dark Souls of Zelda games.
I would say I got not good, but I would say I got experienced with it and knew how to like do things on the fly a lot easier the more I played. Like I got better at like blocking something that like just got thrown at me out of nowhere, like random things. Like I got better at it.
I like the fact that there were towns in this game because it kind of made the world feel more complete.
Yeah.
Because you went to towns, you got the hookers that would go in and they'd fill your health or fill your magic.
That's what they were?
Well, I'm just assuming, hey, Link, come in here. I can heal you up. Go in the house for a minute. It comes out all spry.
Fair enough.
And then you get the girls that are like, yeah, my dad can help you. And then you go in the basement and the dude gives you a spell.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Oh, I like that. I thought that was really cool, actually. That's a really nice aspect of the game. Like, it makes the world feel alive.
You know, and a lot of the townsfolk in the different towns actually give you helpful hints.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't just random banter.
It's not like Zelda 1, just like random.
Well, I mean, those are helpful hints too, but they're not.
But you have to know what they mean.
They're less specific.
Like, they're way too broad.
In this game, there's actual dialogue, you know?
Yeah.
And there's bug and error, you know? Bagu and error.
Bagu and error, yeah, they were pretty... Those...
Did you like that? Did you get that joke? I'm sure you heard a meme about it before you got there.
No, what I didn't get the joke until I met Bagu. The entire time I was playing the game, up until I met Bagu, I thought like my game was broken and error was like something important, and like I was like super worried until
when I was a kid, I thought there was something wrong. I thought, oh man, something happened to this game. And as a kid, I didn't know what Bagu was. I didn't know that was like the Japanese word for bug.
Yeah.
So I just until I was probably your age, until I like figured it out. And I was like, "Oh, that's a cool pun." I mean, you have to really look into that fucking pun, but it's there.
Yeah, like, it threw me off guard so hard. You said you watched some of that first VOD? Literally, the entire second half of the VOD like was just me keep saying, "Was there something important there that I needed to get? Like, did the game break and I just didn't?"
Was that error something I really needed to know and is gonna keep me from progressing?
Yeah, I was like super worried about that. That made me. I laughed once I figured it out, but it made me mad.
So you like the gameplay, you like the combat, you like the use of spells. I know there is a small amount of spells you could choose from, but it was
like
they were
8 of them in
helpful.
all.
Like the shield spell helps, the life spell, the fairy spell is an easy way to skip over fucking levels. If you need to go across a bridge, you don't want to do too much or go over a level. You don't want to fight enemies.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Definitely wish I would have got the fairy thing earlier on in my gameplay, or maybe played for a little longer after I got it, because there were just some enemies who I freaking hated, and once I had the fairy thing, I just flew right over them like it was nothing.
The one thing that kind of didn't bother me, but it was something I expected more that didn't happen on this game when I was younger, was that the items you get, they're very passive items.
Yeah.
Like, you don't use them as much as, you would in Zelda 1. Like, you get, like, a hammer. You can only use that in the overworld. You get the candle. You don't really use it. It just is automatically used. I mean, the raft, you use it.
You use it once. I looked it up. The raft is used once in the entire game.
Yeah, like, the items are more of just, these will help you advance. Not so much as these are going to help you in your everyday combat life. That's the spells and what they're going to do. So I can see how, okay, we took out the items that are going to be used as as items or weapons, and we're gonna give you items that are just kind of passive used, and then give you some spells. I can see that, but no fucking boomerang. That's Link's in my mind as a kid, and even now, like, a boomerang is iconic to Link. Like, I when I was a kid, I was obsessed with boomerangs because of the Legend of Zelda. I was like, oh, that's the coolest thing in the world. And then I actually got a real boomerang and threw it, and then I didn't have a boomerang no more. Because I didn't know how boomerangs worked.
I don't know how boomerangs work. I thought if you just threw them, they came back.
No, you have to throw them a very specific way so that they, like, come back, and they don't come back like they do in video games and movies. Like, you have to throw it, like, so it goes in a big, huge arc, and it'll come back to you. But you don't just, like, throw it straight and it's gonna come back to you straight. No, that's not how it works. Trust me. I've lost several boomerangs in my childhood.
So hard.
Several boomerangs in my childhood that became someone else's boomerang.
It's just like, you're like, I'm gonna go throw this boomerang. Mom, I'm gonna go throw this boomerang. Mom, I can't find the boomerang.
And then, but yeah, I loved this game as a kid. Like, it was my favorite. This came out when I was heavily watching the Legend of Zelda cartoon. I used to play Zelda. Me and my cousin Amy, we used to pretend I was Link and she was Zelda, and we'd run around the backyard, and I would quote lines from the cartoon, and and I'd play this game, and I'd be like, oh, this is like this game to me was more Zelda than the first Zelda was. Like, this game had more personality than the second one did.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it had more, even though the story was weird and I didn't know that, I just thought, oh, I'm going to save Zelda again. This time, instead of triangles, I'm using little crystals. And then I don't know. Even playing it again, it isn't just the nostalgia of it. I like this game. Like, I like the combat in this game. I like the way you can progress. You can grind if you want to and become pretty OP pretty quickly.
Yeah.
There is a thing that I did notice that I didn't when I was a kid, is at a certain point in certain areas you can't grind no more. Like, the enemies will stop giving you experience points.
Actually, I noticed that because I was getting into a lot of fights in, like, random areas. And, like, I would get, like, stuck from fight to fight, and, like, they stopped giving me experience. And, like, at some point, I was like, I'm doing all these fights, but, like, I'm not leveling up at all. What is going on?
Yeah, it's like there's level caps almost in the areas, so that you can't completely, grind everything out. I mean, you can to a certain point. Like I said, whenever I usually play through, I grind out the first palace till I have everything at level 3, and I think I usually get my life to about level 4.
Yeah.
And that's easy because of certain enemies, which we'll get to. But anything else you need to say about the gameplay here?
No, I mean, I loved and hated it a lot, so, I mean, not much.
Did you find it hard?
Yes.
What were the hardest parts that you found just in the gameplay wise?
Any enemy with a shield.
Oh, because you had to actually, like, actively, like, up or down. Well, that's where the downward thrust comes into play.
Yeah.
When you get that, you can just downward thrust on enemies with shields and get them.
Yeah. But I, once again, didn't know that. So I hated especially, like, in beyond enemies with shields, any enemy that you had to hit up close really were my least favorite parts of the gameplay. Like, when you had to get up to them and, like, hit them with your sword, because you're almost, like, 100% of the time, you're most likely going to take damage.
Well, unless you're good. And plus, you know what bothered me in this game? One thing that bothered me was the beam you shoot out of your sword when you have full health. It goes a very short distance.
Oh, yeah.
Like it does not travel across the screen like the first Zelda game.
No, that threw me off. I was like...
That still pisses me off.
That really threw me off. I was like, why is this, like, so weak? He was like, he could throw his sword beam, like, miles almost in the first game, and then in this one it's like a few feet.
It's like he grew up and forgot how to really do it.
Yeah, because he didn't need to save Zelda for so long. 5 years roughly.
Maybe he hadn't been doing a lot of fighting. Well, it wasn't like he did a lot of fighting before then. He was like 11-year-old kid. In the Zelda game, the first one, the first time he ever picks up a sword, from what I can assume, is the very first time he walks into the cave and gets that sword from
the old man.
I found out that old man's name when I was watching a video the other day. What was it? Sasa. It's a big old long weird name. He's in the Super NES Zelda game, but they actually name him Sasa. I'm not even gonna try. I can't remember nothing past Sasa. But it's a big old long name. But he's the one that gives you the sword, and apparently he's supposed to be one of the sages of time, or not sages of time, but like one of the sages, and that just leads me to believe that all the other old men, for the most part, in the first Legend of Zelda game that you meet, are sages. And that's why they're helping you out. They're not just random villagers or guys in caves. They're sages hiding out from Ganon that are to help you because you're the chosen one. And it's a good thing that Impa picked you, because you're the one that ends up with the Triforce on the back of your hand. What if it was some other like 12-year-old kid who came by? You would have been hit.
What if it was some actual swordsman with like all these skills and like didn't know what he was doing?
Well, he probably wouldn't have been able to beat Ganon, because only Link can do that shit, as it was foretold, as it shall be in the history of Hyrule. There's always a Zelda and there's always a Link.
Yeah. Did that like start anywhere, or has it just always been?
Well, it starts in one of the later Zelda games, where you kind of go back to it being like the first Zelda and the first Link, and then you get in. I'm not 100% clear on the whole history, but you know, I've beaten Breath of the Wild, I've beaten Tears of the Kingdom, I've played a little bit of Skyward Sword, and from what I can tell is at the very beginning of the history of Hyrule, when the kingdom was created, they fought this evil entity that wasn't even called Ganon. It was called the Demon King.
Oh.
It was the Demon King, and they all fought against him, and spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda travels back in time from like the latest, like the very end of the timeline. Zelda travels back in time and helps that very first king of Hyrule defeat the Demon King, and they locked him away in the sword or something. And ever since then, the prophecy was that every king should have a daughter named Link, and the Demon King actually cursed the kingdom of Hyrule and said that he will keep coming back, and every time he comes back, his prophecy will come back, because a Link will be born. So it's almost like Link is the cause of Ganon, like, because Ganon doesn't come back until there's a new Link. Because there's a new Zelda every generation. Yeah. That doesn't stop. There's always a Zelda in the history of Hyrule. But every so many like centuries or years or however long, there's a Link. Well, there's a Link, and then Ganon comes back. So it's almost like we could blame Link for there being a Ganon.
Well then, gosh darn it, Link, I wouldn't even have to be playing this game if you didn't exist.
Yeah, if someone would just stop naming their fucking kids Link, we could just not have Ganon no more.
Yeah, I feel like at some point, like...
someone would have figured this out. And be like, every time we have a kid around here and their name's Link, about the time he turns 11, a fucking demon shows up.
You know, it's got to be a very, like, I mean, it happens a lot throughout the course of the Zelda games, because, you know, it spawned an entire franchise.
Why doesn't the Kingdom of Hyrule just be like, you know what, this keeps fucking happening?
Like, this is, like, against the law now. You cannot name your kid Link.
Yeah, and so we will just have to kind of vaguely put together the history of Hyrule. I've read parts of the history. I've actually watched entire videos that have tried to explain to me. That's my Dr. Pepper. I've watched entire videos trying to just grasp the timeline of Zelda, and I'm still iffy on it.
Seems like, I don't know, I haven't even really touched the story, and I'm already confused by it.
It's like, and then Nintendo keeps retconning things and adding things. Fucking Nintendo. Miyamoto is just like, oh yeah, sure, fucking Demon King, yeah. Every time they ask Miyamoto, so what happened here? How are these two connected? Well, a magician.
That's funny. That's what he does for every game. That's how he is.
Well, how did Bowser come back this time? Well, he got some magic that we never talked about before.
It's that wizard.
There's a wizard. He did some shit and died.
That's
so we don't have to keep that wizard around for more plot. We just gotta kill him off as soon as he does a thing.
Yeah.
Fucking
what's
magicians.
with him and wizards, bro?
But yeah, and then timeline, the Demon King comes back in different iterations. Like it comes back is a evil thing named Vati at one point, and then Ganon, he keeps coming back as Ganon, and then yeah, it's I don't want to get into that because
that's a whole thing.
I can't even really wrap my mind around the whole history of Hyrule. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the enemies of this game. I'm not good at segues yet. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
So yeah, let's talk about the enemies. So you got your basic slime enemies.
Yeah.
You got your spiders that come from the fucking trees that I hate so much.
I don't know. They didn't really annoy me too bad.
I hate those.
They did
spiders.
at first, like the first time I came across them, but they weren't very hard to.
Well, because a lot of times you get those spiders at the same time you get moblins. So you'll try to avoid the moblins and the spiders at the same time.
And then they'll like.
Yeah. Or you get the spiders and slimes. And the basic, thing I do with the slimes a lot of times, I just jump over the slimes, unless they're spiders, because then you're gonna hit the goddamn spider.
Well, I just kill the slimes. They're not.
I mean, you can do that too. I mean, that's an option.
They're like 1 hit, 2 hits.
Yeah, and then see, you got the moblins with the spears, and then you got the red moblins with the spears, and you got like the pink moblins that throw the spears.
Yeah.
You got like the weird fucking, I don't know. They always kind of creep me out, those ones that throw the hammers, like the Hammer Brothers.
Oh my God. Yeah, I
don't know what they're supposed to be. They look weird as shit.
Yeah.
And I always, as a kid, hated those more than any of the other enemies, just because I could never get their pattern down in my head. Now I can, but as a kid, it's like I'm gonna take a hit. So if I see the hammers coming, it's time to throw the shield on. Just go in there and attack that.
Do as much as I can. I am.
So you got those hammer guys, and then you got the beetles that aren't so bad except for the first couple of caves where you don't have the candle.
Yeah,
and then the only way to see them is that if you looking really carefully on the ground, you can see their legs.
That's what when I was streaming it, dude, that threw me off so bad because like when you move though, like when Link is moving and like the screen moves, like
it's hard to see
the
that
ground moves like in like the screen moves almost in the same way it looks like when those guys are coming towards you. So it's like
you got to stop and you got to look at the floor and then make okay. But then once you get the candle in the first palace, that doesn't matter because you got your caves lit up. The bats, which aren't too bad, they're just standard NES bats. They come at an angle.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo. Octoroks. The Octoroks ain't too big of a deal, but a lot of times they put the Octoroks in the caves in like little divots in the ground.
Oh yeah, which makes them like super hard to deal with.
Which makes them annoying.
Like, I don't know. Whenever I was going, not necessarily like when I was going through caves, most of the time, like I was determined just to kill every single enemy for some reason. So I'd be like, I'm gonna kill all of these guys.
Well, you're grinding. You're doing your thing. Let's see, what else do you got? You got the eyeballs.
Yeah.
As we spoke of before. What ones am I missing? Okay, you got the
guys with the shields. They're like nice.
Okay, you got the dark nuts. So those are called dark nuts.
The dark nuts.
Dark nuts.
Those big like guys that
The dark nuts. I like the dark nuts because they're the main actual challenge. Normal enemies in this game.
Oh yeah, and I mean they're challenging. Like
especially when you get to the later levels when they're harder, and then you get the ones that throw and the ones that throw beams at you too.
I think so. I don't know. But and then there's those really tall guys that like you hit the bottom of them, they like come down and you have to hit their head like 3 times and they die.
Oh, like the worms?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I figured those are like maggots or something.
Yeah, me too.
And then you got the standard jumping. I called them rabbit people or jackal people when I was a kid because they look like little like jackal head people. They don't attack you. They just run back and forth.
I guess I could see that.
You just hit them. They kind of like one hit kills, but then you just get a whole bunch of them in a row. And those guys don't give you no fucking experience. And that would be the easiest way to grind, but they do not give you experience.
Yep.
And then my favorite is the glowing skulls.
Dude, I'm pretty sure those are this game's version of those glowing like fuzz balls from the first game.
Well, kind of, yeah, no, but at the same time you can beat them. You can kill them. They just take like like 50 fucking hits. Like,
Yeah,
and that's how I grind out that first castle.
Is by
In
killing
that
those
first
guys?
castle, you just take some time and you kill all those glowing skulls going back and forth. They each give you 50 experience points.
Oh, actually, that's not bad.
So usually that's where I get most of my experience points in the first castle. Is I keep grinding those out as I'm going through, you know, repeating, going through one way and coming through the other way. And usually, like I said, I'm leaving there. My attack's at 3, my magic's at 3, my health's usually around 4. And that gives you a good jump on the beginning of that game, because you need it.
Yeah.
And then those become easier and easier as you level up your sword to get those skull things. But that's a good experience in the first dungeon, because I mean you get 50 experience, I believe, from the Dark Nuts as well, the beginning Dark Nuts, and then 30 from the Hammer Brother people.
Yeah.
So. And that's how I grind out those things. And that's why they're my favorite enemies. And then once you get them, they stay locked in place, and you can just hit them and hit them and hit them and hit them.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes like a long time. That when you got like a level 1 sword, I think you have to hit them like 40 or 50 times. But it's really cool. And there's a one part of the first palace where you got like 4 coming at you, and there's like 2 levels. Like you can't get to that top part of the level. It's just where they're bouncing back and forth. If you can catch 3 of them like together when you start attacking them, then you're attacking 3 of them at once, and then boom, 150 experience.
Yeah, I never tried to hit them. I just tried to do my best to make them get stuck up top so I could get through the darn tunnel.
Fair enough. I can feel that. Let's see, what else do we got? You got those guys in the later levels where there's like that big fence, and they like throw things at you.
Oh my god.
Those are fun. What else am I missing? Let's see. You got the different kinds of Dark Nuts. You got,
and then there's I feel like each castle had like its own kind of like boss.
Well, yeah, each castle has its own boss. You did you beat all the palaces?
No.
How many palaces did you beat?
I think 2.
You only beat 2 palaces?
Yeah, I literally the farthest I ever got to the game was off that beginning like spot where you use the boat. Like I just got there and then I kept dying and I put the game down, and that was this morning.
So you I thought you told me you were near the end.
No, I told you I had 2 hours left of the game. It's only a 3-hour game.
Okay, I think in my head I was like, oh, you've been playing the game for 2 weeks. I only got 2 hours left. That in my head says, oh, he's almost done. So you really didn't even experience a lot of the game. Did you get to the Hyrule, like the old Hyrule from the old map?
I think I did. Yeah, it looked very familiar at least.
Yeah, and that's where I'm assuming Zelda's at, just hanging out for the whole game. Let's see. So how many bosses did you beat?
2.
Which ones? Well, obviously the horse head.
Yeah, the horse head. And I don't remember what the second one was, but it was really annoying. He had it wasn't like a lot of health. He had like your average boss health, but
was it that snake or something that comes up from the ground, or the lava, or the moth, or
I think it was the snake one. I'm not 100% sure, but so annoying.
So you beat 2 bosses. You didn't really get fucking far at all.
No.
So did you? I guess you wouldn't know because you only went through 2 palaces. But a lot of times in the palaces, right before you get to the boss area, there's a fairy. Oh, you know what? We should talk about. So your first VOD, after I watched it, and you couldn't jump over ledges. What was the deal there? You had the
super jump,
rapid fire. You had your turbo button on, so you didn't realize that the longer you hold the button down, the longer you jump, and so you had trouble making it over some of the easily jumpable on the ledges. I think that probably was what deterred your first playthrough on the first VOD.
Oh yeah.
Was I can't jump over these? Why can't I jump over these ledges? And I'm like, oh well, maybe it's that big huge ledge that you need the jump spell. And then I watched your VOD and said, no, hey Socko, come here real quick. I gotta tell you something about your turbo button.
Yeah.
Don't use it for jumping.
Unless you're like going up those stairs, then it works. But other than that,
I guess that could work.
But like even then, it was still annoying. It would have just been easier. That made me so. I was so mad once you.
Did you ever go? You went across where you had the most notorious enemy of Zelda 2, Bubbles.
Actually, I was really good at avoiding them. Actually.
Well, yeah, those are. I was being sarcastic when I said notorious bosses. So, You fight the bosses. There's several of them. There's the snake guy. There's the horse head guy, which honestly is my favorite, and that is all nostalgia. He's only my favorite because as a kid I couldn't get much farther than you got for years and years and years until I actually got good at the game. So I just would most of the time just die at that boss. So he seemed like the end game boss in my head.
You thought he was like,
I'm like, that's it. That's where the game ends. That's the palace where we save Zelda. No, not that stupid. I knew that was the first level, but still, I was like, I can't beat the first boss. It's the horse head guy. A horse head man with a mace.
Hated it.
Love it.
I mean, I loved it, but it's
so
cool
did
design.
you watch a video of the rest of the game?
I watched a video of the rest of most of the game, and I watched I was really though like I was only paying the most attention to like the ending because I was like I really needed to see the ending. I wanted to see what I was missing out on doing, and it turned out it was just Shadow Link.
Oh, Shadow Link, that's fucking cool. Dark Link, like the first time I ever beat this game and I fought Dark Link, I thought that was an awesome idea.
I think it's a cool idea, but I think I was just a little upset I wasn't able to get there on my own, so I was a little salty when I was watching it.
There's a real easy exploit to beat Dark Link. Like you just sit
in the corner. Yeah, that's the video I watched for the person.
That's probably what everybody does when they fight Dark Link, unless they're trying to look fucking cool and do something special.
Yeah. So I never knew. Does Dark Link does he record what you're like how you play, or is it just random?
It's not random.
Well,
I'm sure it's pre-programmed, but it's not like it's not that far ahead of its time to where it can learn. It's not a learning AI. Chat GPT isn't watching you play and be like, this is how you would play.
I thought maybe it would be like, well, this is how you fought like a certain boss.
It's an AI generated version of yourself.
Not AI generated. I mean, even games now struggle with concepts like that, so I wouldn't assume something from then could. But I mean, like, if it would just record like a specific boss you fought and then fight you like that, like it would just
it just fights you like pre-programmed way that it fights. So the bosses are cool. I like the boss fights in this much better than I like the boss fights in the first Zelda game.
I like the first game, the boss fights better.
Yeah, I like this one because it's more combat. It's not the other bosses. I mean, they are good. It's a classic game.
Oh yeah,
but it's all gimmicky. Like, oh, you beat this boss by using this item, or you beat this.
Every boss needs an item. Really.
You beat the dongos with the bombs. You beat the one guy with the whistle. We don't beat him with the whistle, but you weaken him with the whistle. You got the guy that breathes those 3 fires at you. You can, as long as you got a beam on your blade, you can kill him from far away pretty easy. The only one that doesn't have like a gimmick is the Hydra with the heads, because they just come at you and you just gotta fight them.
Yeah.
Let's see, and there's not too many gimmicky bosses in this game because there's not too many gimmicks. Like I said, you don't get.
The only gimmicks are like the spells, and those are really reserved for like. Just like you use them to get past certain parts,
or like you use the shield.
Or like you use the shield,
so you take less damage, or you can use
like
the life spell to give your life. But the only thing you use that would be like an offensive thing is like you get the fireball.
Yeah,
and that's all right, but it takes a decent amount of MP to use.
So it's kind of a one-use thing.
Well, no, by the time you get the fireball, your magic should be high enough level you can use it a few times. Maybe if you're not grinding the levels out, it's like a one-shot use, and you could easily be saving that MP for a shield spell or a life spell.
Yeah, I never used my MP unless I had to for like a jump spell. I only used it for life spells. I didn't really use the shield spells.
I use the shield spell all the fucking time.
I probably should have used it more often, especially because it doesn't cost like anything either. It's like
especially once you level up your magic, it's like a quarter of a bar or a half of a bar. I didn't like the fact that they took away the hearts and made them like bars. I think this is the only game where they didn't use hearts to represent your life. And
but also I feel like when I think of like a lot of games that would be on the same like level of Legend of Zelda 2 when it comes to like how it's played, I definitely think of like bar health.
Okay, and also they took away the rupees.
Yeah,
like you don't collect rupees, you don't buy nothing. There's towns, but now there's no shops.
Yeah,
when before there was shops but no towns.
It's just shops.
It's like all the merchants live in caves, and if you live in a town, you better not be selling shit. Unless you're selling your ass. Because those females are about the only thing you can get.
You did it for free, though, so it's not even...
Hey, you're Link, man. There's only one in every generation of Ganons. I wonder why there wasn't a Link back in the day when that first Zelda got put to sleep.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Because there was no Ganon, bro.
Oh yeah.
If there
I mean, there probably was a Link.
it was a good thing
Like,
there wasn't a Link back then, because there would have been a Link and a Ganon and no Zelda. Well, there would have been Zelda, but she'd been asleep, and Ganon could have
just
easily kidnapped her and,
Yeah.
and did whatever the fuck Ganon does to Zelda.
don't want to think too far into that.
Ganondorf. Hate the word Ganondorf. It pisses me off. So what do you think about the music in this game? It's a lot different.
It actually, I didn't think it felt like they took the original Legend of Zelda soundtrack and then like really just like moved all the notes into random places and then put it back.
There isn't really any music in this that repeats from the first Zelda game. The first Zelda game, a lot of the tunes in the first Zelda game are repeated throughout the series, but in this one, this is like the one that's different. This is the Mario 2 of Zelda games. It's just different, and they take some stuff out of it to use in later games, but only certain things. Like, a lot of the combat mechanics are reused in the 3D Zelda games.
Yeah.
They use Dark Link shows up in a couple of Zelda games. I know he's in Twilight Princess for sure. I'm not 100% sure what other games. I know he's in Twilight Princess for sure.
I wouldn't know.
But I like the music in this game. It's different, but it's catchy.
I liked
It's
it.
like dun 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 dun. It's like,
But for some reason, it just felt like, and maybe it's just because, I have actually really bad pitch ears. Like, I'm not really good at like hearing notes. But to me, like, it just sounded like they took it, moved the notes to random spots, and then was like, here you go, this is new soundtrack. And, like, did that for, like, each spot.
when you're using the NES synthesized music, there's not a whole lot to work with, even though, like, I believe this was mixed by Koji Kondo. He's the main NES guy who made, like, the theme for Legend of Zelda. He's the one that made the theme for Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
He's the one that made the theme for all these legendary games. I believe he did do the theme for this. And I think it's something he did. He didn't. Nintendo, when it came to those days, this was the second Zelda game.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a series. This was just the second one. And Nintendo was always like, well, the second game, we got to make it completely different than the first game, or else what's the point?
Mario 1 and Mario 2.
Mario 1. Well, Mario 2 technically.
Well, technically, it's
just a more because it's what we got as the lost levels.
Yeah.
And that they did kind of do the same thing, but more.
The lost levels just felt like Mario 1, but different levels.
More
And
like
Luigi's mechanic had different stuff.
It felt like Mario 1.5.
Yeah.
And then, when they came out the US Mario 2, it was a completely
Mario
different
America.
game. They kept some elements like the characters, but of course it was a whole different game, Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, Doki. It's based off of some radio show.
No. It was based on, was it a radio show? I thought it was a TV show, and it was...
I'm pretty sure it was a radio show.
I think it was a TV show in
It might have been a
Japan,
TV show.
where it was based on like this family, like Arabian family. That's why there's a heavy Arabian theme in Mario 2.
Yeah.
So like this is the second Zelda game. There was really no, this is how Zelda games are. It was like, okay, the other game was like this. Now we're going to do it differently like this. Of course, they went back more to the style of the first game in future games. But then if you look at the future Zelda games that are 3D, like Ocarina of Time onwards, they are more like this game than the original Zelda. Because they're more focused on combat. And I think that's the big difference between these two games, between the first Zelda and this Zelda, is the first Zelda was focused on puzzle solving and exploration.
Oh yeah, this didn't really there didn't feel like there were really many puzzles at all.
No, I can't even think of any puzzles. Besides just some of the palaces were maze-like.
Well, and I mean, like, there weren't really puzzles, but there were, like, the way they set it up kind of felt like the Zelda one in the, like, aspect when you think of the puzzles. Like finding Bagu, that felt like a puzzle. Like,
I think that's more like a riddle.
Well,
it's not so much a
it
puzzle.
It doesn't say exactly where because he tells you exactly where to look. He's north of the river. No one's gonna like mistake what forest he's in. But like it felt like because you're constantly getting attacked by enemies and you're like having to like go up and down through these like tree lines until you find the right square. It felt like almost like a Legend of Zelda 1 puzzle, because
I guess that's more like find the hidden mountain that you can bomb or something kind of thing. But that's the big difference in my head, is the first game is puzzle and exploration.
Yeah.
This game is not so much exploration and not puzzle. It's more combat
it felt very combat
and more combat.
combat and combat.
I mean, the story is kind of meh. but the gameplay is awesome. I love this game. It's the combat Zelda. It's like I said, all the 3D games, Zelda games in the future, are more combat based than you know. Well, I guess I can't say that because the 3D games combine sort of the elements of this and the elements of the other top-down Zelda games because there's a lot of puzzles and a lot of combat. But if you're not good at the combat, you're not going to get very far. And if you're not good at the puzzles, you're not going to get very far. When we play Ocarina of Time, you'll see what I mean.
What's the farthest in the Legend of Zelda series we'll be able to get under the Retro Quest?
Well, let's see. We're going to go up to
Till I was born.
GameCube.
Well, there were plenty of consoles before I was born, but
I think the farthest as far as console generations we could go before
probably
you were
be the
born.
Wii generation, because that came out like.
No, Wii came out after you were born.
Really?
Yes. No. The Wii did come out. So
because the Wii came out around the same time as the PS3, and the PS3 was out like 5 years before I was born.
It was a couple years before you were born. So the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360 would be as far as we could go. So I mean, we could go all the way up to
even some of the games that like
Skyward Sword.
Yeah, and we could go up to like some of the games like that I grew up playing too.
No, that's not very retro to me.
But like, I mean, what I'm saying though is like,
I say anything pre 2010. But I don't know. I really want to focus more on 8-bit,
like,
16-bit, 32-bit.
We're definitely not like until we run out of.
I don't want to. Yeah, we're not gonna.
Which is not gonna happen.
We're not gonna go towards that far for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think we can jump back and forth between NES, Super NES, N64, PlayStation pretty easily and consider that pretty retro.
I would say honestly.
So I mean, we can play the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
And you'll see that does sort of the same thing as this and the first Zelda game because you got Ocarina of Time. It's a very Zelda-y game, and then you get to Majora's Mask, which is way fucking different. I mean, not way different, but like, it's different.
Yeah.
Different enough to be different. It's like a 3-day time loop that you keep playing through. It's like more kind of horror based. It's like spooky Zelda. It's more creepy, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, back to The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. So this was a pretty good adventure for Link.
It was quite the adventure. I don't know how he got to where he was, and I don't know why there's two Zeldas, but the adventure
I think we broke down why there's two Zeldas is because...
Well, yeah.
I wonder how long that Zelda...
Yeah,
it doesn't really necessarily give you a time frame. I mean, even though this one, so if we're to follow the storyline of this, okay, so the Prince of Hyrule couldn't figure out the where the Triforce was, so he had the fucking shitty magician cast the one spell he could cast before he dies, put his sister to sleep, and then felt so bad that later on he had a kid and named his kid Zelda.
I guess
because he would be the next king of Hyrule. And since there are more Zeldas after she went to sleep, that's saying that he had a kid, felt bad, named his kid Zelda, and then that generation had a kid named Zelda. So you want to think there's we're at least 3 Zeldas removed from the sleeping Zelda,
and then
maybe 2 Zeldas removed from the sleeping Zelda,
which makes the ending a little weird because Link is 16, and this God knows how old Zelda just gives him a big ol' kiss behind the curtains.
Well, she was asleep, so she was frozen in time. So, I mean, she's like...
Well, yeah, she's probably not...
She's probably like
about the same
16, age. 17, going on 300. Something like that.
Probably around there.
I wonder if, like, she wakes up and she just ages dramatically. Like, super fast forward, or she just ages normally after that.
Does she, like, in the next week, like, start to show, like, the signs of back pain? Or does she just, like... She's just a teenager still?
This is like the Nintendo, like... Nintendo version of Sleeping Beauty.
Really, it is. You gotta find the final piece of the Triforce hidden up in this final palace. You gotta fight the shadow version of yourself.
It's Nintendo. You gotta find a MacGuffin. There has to be an item that you need.
Oh yeah.
Or in this case, you don't need an item. You just have. Well, I guess you need the Triforce. That's what you're going for. It's the Triforce of Courage. So yeah, that's The Legend of Zelda: The Adventures of Link. You got any more to say about this game?
No, I've had my fair share of Legend of Zelda 2 Adventure Link.
So are you going to go back and play this game at all?
I will definitely... Honestly, I don't have an answer. I might... It really just depends on if I'm able to get past the fact that like I'm so angry I saw that ending and not able to get there because like I was that's so cool and I was like, but I didn't do that on my own. So I'm like,
But you didn't even get close to the fucking ending.
I
You
was
got
2 hours away.
Okay, well, how much? It's a 3-hour game, and you spent how much time playing it?
Like 2 weeks, like probably like 10 hours in all.
Okay, so let's say you're about 20 hours away from the end of the game. Would you invest that much time in this game? I would. I'm gonna probably. I played it. I don't really need to play because I played it so much, but I played a bit of it this week in my free time besides when I wasn't playing Dredge. And I can play this game. I can always sit down and play this game. I can beat this game about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. I'm not a speedrunner or nothing, but
no, speedrun time is like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, but I know how to efficiently grind at the beginning so that the rest of the game is pretty breezy. See all that stuff and fly over it as a ferry a lot of the times. So I figured out our rating scale. So when we're doing, I think we might have mentioned this in the last episode. So when we're doing 8-bit games, we'll do out of 8. When we're doing 16-bit games, we'll do out of 16. When we're doing 64,
Yeah.
So this is an 8-bit game. What would you rate The Legend of Zelda 2: The Adventure Link out of 8?
I would have to give it a 4, right in the middle.
You would give this game a 4.
Maybe a 5 if it was lucky on a good day. On my second thought.
Wow, I kind of thought you would give it higher than that.
I really wanted to, but I can't get over the fact that I just like
that you suck at the game. It's the game's fault that you suck at the game.
Well, but I never got to see the it's not the game's fault, but I can't give the game a fair rating above 4 because I didn't even get halfway through the game.
This is why you need to beat the game and experience it to rate it. You had 2 weeks, bro.
2 weeks, 10 hours. That's like a lot of time. That's like all of my free periods at school and like a few and some at home.
How many hours have you played in the last week? Just 1 week playing GTA.
Like 6 actually, because I haven't had anyone to play with.
Okay, well, so for me, I'm giving it an 8.
Yep.
I'm gonna give it an 8. And I think the only reason I didn't give the first Zelda game
because you wanted to give this
I
one
wanted to, I had to take the Zelda 2 tax. It's a Zelda 2 tax. Any Zelda game, I'm gonna have to take 1 point away because it's not this game.
That is such a.
So just so you know, every Zelda game, 1 point gets deducted because it's not Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link.
So if we ever get to a Zelda game, that would have been 1. It would just be 0.
I don't think we'd ever get to a Zelda game that would be 1. Unless we did
4 swords.
I said Zelda game. Unless we somehow come across you ever see the CDI versions of those Zelda games for the CDI?
Never saw them for the CDI.
The CDI was like a interactive CD thing that was like back in the 90s.
I know what the CDI is, but I never saw Legend of Zelda.
They made 3 Zelda games for the CDI. One of them's where you play.
Is it the really stupid one with the graphics? Like,
yeah, the graphics look like fucking retarded. And there's one where you play as Zelda, and then there's 2 you play as Link. One of the ones you play as Link is
there's a lot of memes
decent. Is one that's decent, but I don't think it's more than a 2. And so I guess it's not decent. It's shitty, but it's better than the other 2. That's about what I can give that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give it an 8. And no other Zelda game will get an 8. The highest it's gonna get is a 7. Maybe a 7.5 if I'm feeling lucky. It's a good day.
Yeah. So the thing was, in the first episode, actually, what we said we were going to do was we were going to do it, like, based on the game. So, like, we did out of 10 Triforce pieces.
Okay, well, now we're doing it out of bits.
Yeah, out of bits.
Bro.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, constant.
It's continuity. It's what this is all about is continuity. You listeners will soon realize.
We're actively developing
We're active. Here. I was going to say continuity, but.
That's what continuity is.
No, continuity means everything's the same every time. Well, not everything, but same whatever. Maybe you're right. I don't know. So, that was it for Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Next month, Spoopy month, I think we're going to be doing, for our next podcast, it's either going to be Friday the 13th, which we will record on Friday the 13th, and release it that weekend, or if as someone who owned that game as a child, my grandma bought it for me. I'm I'm not 100% sure how much meat there is on those bones, as they say. So we might end up doing a double episode next week. Do like I'm thinking Legend of Zelda and the Nightmare on Elm Street game for the NES, which both games not too much to them. I from what I remember of the Nightmare on Elm Street game, it's pretty basic. I mean, it's fun, but it's pretty basic. And the Friday the 13th game is not a whole lot to it, but it is kind of difficult. But it's a fun game. I love that game too. It really has nothing to do with Friday the 13th, except for the fact that there is Jason Kempers and Crystal Lake. That's about it. So if we do that, 2 episodes in one, then the following week for Halloween, I'm thinking about maybe an actual spooky game like Silent Hill for the PS1.
Ooh, I've always wanted to play it too.
So maybe Silent Hill for the PS1. Have you ever played the original Resident Evil for the PS1?
No, never. I've only ever played Resident Evil 4 remake for the VR. It's only.
Well, that wasn't the remake. That was just Resident Evil 4.
Well, yeah, but it was like, and like I've watched and like Resident Evil. I have like 2 experiences with it: the VR Resident Evil 4, and then like I've watched.
Well, that's nothing like the Resident Evil for the PS1.
And then I watched.
So maybe
like,
we'll do
okay.
So we'll do Silent Hill if we can squeeze in 2 games in our next episode, but I don't want to push it. So
yeah,
we'll at least be doing Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, we got to. This is like.
It has to happen.
This is like an insane way that
I wanted to play Friday the 13th for the NES anyway, so it just works out.
Worked.
So anyway, that's about it for the show. This is your host D, the guy who forces his kid to play hard Zelda games.
And actually, I do want to shout something out real quick. Go check out Teenage Podcast. That is my other podcast where me and my friends talk about current world issues and have a lot of fun making jokes. And there you can see another side of me that I can't show on here because you can actually see me.
You can see the only side of him. Well, I guess not the only side, but you can see a side of him. I'm bad at jokes sometimes.
Yes. But yeah, that is.
And I have no plugs because I don't do Twitch anymore. I will probably, if I can get some time, I want to squeeze in some streams on Twitch while I play this, and you'll see me on Joystick Cowboy because that is my Twitch handle, and also my whole other brand, which I haven't done for a while, but I'm looking to resurrect it. Maybe
everybody is looking for you to resurrect it.
I
justice for Joystick Cowboy.
I have heard the couple people say that. Yeah, I'm looking to stream on Twitch again. Maybe put up some VODs. Do some stupid stuff. Maybe retro gaming. I might do some modern gaming stuff on there, but I do want to plug that for the future. So at some point, I will
go
be doing
follow
that.
it so you can see when it comes online for the first time in a while.
Years. Anyway, so that's it for Legend of Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link.
Yep. Signing off.
Signing off.
This is Socko.
And this is the Joystick Cowboy.